The ancient sword on an alien planet. No alien could lift it, but a human could. The stars above glimmered like scattered diamonds as the small shuttle descended toward the red sands of Zythera. The planet was famous across the Galactic Alliance not for its beauty, but for the mysteries buried beneath its endless dunes. Many species had sent their explorers, scientists, and adventurers here, but few returned with anything of value. Inside the shuttle, Commander Eric Hale checked the instruments. His human fingers moved quickly, adjusting dials and scanning the terrain. Despite being shorter and less strong than most alien crew members, humans had a way of noticing details others overlooked. And today, Eric was certain something unusual awaited them. The shuttle touched down softly, stirring small clouds of orange-red dust. Outside, the crew of aliens, tall and muscular, stepped out. Each one stared at the horizon in awe. The dunes stretched endlessly, broken only by faint geometric patterns that hinted at something buried beneath. "Looks empty," said Jorak, a four-armed alien with blue skin. His voice vibrated like low thunder. "What are we even looking for?" "Evidence of the old civilization," Eric replied, adjusting his helmet visor. If the legends are true, Zythera was home to beings far more advanced than anyone today. And somewhere under these sands is proof. They began walking, their steps sinking slightly into the soft, reddish soil. Hours passed, and the sun, larger than Eric had ever seen it from other planets, crept across the sky, painting the dunes in shifting shades of crimson and gold. Finally, the sensors picked up an anomaly. A faint signal pulsed under the ground, steady and rhythmic. Eric pointed toward the source. "Under that ridge," he said. "Something's buried there." The aliens hurried ahead, their long legs covering ground faster than the humans. But as they dug and scanned, a strange pattern began to emerge. A massive structure, partially hidden under the sand, revealed itself. Its walls were smooth, almost metallic, and etched with lines that glowed faintly in the sunlight. It was unlike anything in galactic records. "It's a temple," Eric whispered, awe in his voice. He stepped closer, brushing sand away to reveal more of the entrance. Strange symbols adorned the doorway, glowing with a soft blue light. "Doors look sealed," said Klar, a bulky alien who was known for his brute strength. "Maybe it's locked. We'll have to open it the hard way." The aliens tried to push, pull, and pry the doors, using every ounce of their strength. Jorak used all four arms to lift and twist, but the doors wouldn't budge. The temple remained unmoved, almost as if it were alive and refused to open for them. Eric stepped closer, feeling the hum of the energy around the temple. His human senses, though less powerful physically, seemed to pick up something subtle, the vibrations, the rhythm, the faint warmth beneath his fingertips. He closed his eyes, letting instinct guide him. "Try this," he said softly. The aliens looked at him with skepticism. A human, small and fragile compared to them, but Eric ignored them. He pressed his hands against the symbols etched into the doorway. There was a subtle pulse, like a heartbeat, under his palms. He pressed again, this time tracing the lines in a pattern that felt natural to him. The symbols glowed brighter, and the doors shuddered. Slowly, almost reluctantly, the entrance began to slide open, revealing darkness inside. The alien stayed, jaws dropped. A human had done what none of them could. Inside, the air was cooler, and the glow of the symbols bathed the chamber in soft light. Dust floated lazily in the air, and a faint hum resonated through the walls. At the center of the chamber, on a raised pedestal, rested the ancient sword. It was magnificent. Its blade shimmered in colors that seemed impossible, changing from silver to gold to a soft blue as it caught the light. The hilt was intricately carved with designs that hinted at intelligence far beyond the present. It seemed to float slightly above the pedestal, held only by some unseen force. The aliens approached cautiously, their curiosity mixed with awe. One by one, they tried to lift the sword. Klar wrapped his massive hands around the hilt and pulled with all his strength. Nothing. Jorak pushed with all four arms. Still, it didn't move. "It's impossible," Jorak muttered, stepping back, his voice tinged with frustration. "Even I can't lift it." Eric watched quietly, studying the sword. He felt drawn to it, as if it were calling specifically to him. Carefully, he stepped forward and rested his hands on the hilt. The moment his fingers touched the cold metal, he felt a warm energy flow through him. The sword lifted effortlessly, as if it had been waiting for him all along. The alien froze. How? Clara's voice was barely a whisper. Eric held the sword steady, marveling at its weightlessness in his hands. It's responsive, he said. Not just a weapon. Something more. Something alive, maybe. The sword pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat, and the chamber seemed to hum in response. The air felt charged with energy, and even the symbols on the walls glowed brighter, as if approving the human who now held their treasure. What does it want? Jorak asked, still staring in disbelief. Eric didn't answer immediately. He felt the sword presence in his mind. Not thoughts, exactly, but impressions. It seemed to resonate with qualities the alien could not fully understand. Courage, adaptability, quick thinking, and a kind of quiet strength. Traits humans often had in abundance, even if they weren't the strongest or largest beings. It chooses who can wield it, Eric said finally, and apparently it chose me. The aliens exchanged uneasy glances. In their cultures, strength and size were often the deciding factors for leadership or worthiness. Yet here was a human, physically smaller, holding a weapon that none of them could even budge. Eric examined the chamber further. In the corners, small carvings depicted beings holding similar swords, their eyes glowing as they performed tasks and faced trials. Clearly, the sword was not just a weapon. It was a key, a test, or perhaps a guide left by Zythera's ancient civilization. Suddenly, a faint rumble shook the chamber. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the floor beneath the pedestal shifted slightly. The sword's glow intensified, and Eric instinctively held it tighter. The alien stepped back, wary. It's reacting, Eric said. It knows we're here, and it knows I'm holding it. A holographic projection emerged from the pedestal, casting the walls with images of the ancient civilization. Tall, graceful beings with elongated limbs moved across floating platforms, creating inventions and devices far beyond modern technology. The sword seemed central to their society, perhaps even a symbol of leadership and intelligence. The aliens gasped. Incredible, Klar muttered. This civilization, it's thousands of years ahead of us. Eric nodded, still holding the sword. He could feel a strange connection to the holographic images, as if the sword was allowing him to understand their purpose and intentions. It was exhilarating and overwhelming at the same time. He took a deep breath. This is more than a discovery. This is a responsibility. We can't just take it and leave. We need to understand it first. The alien seemed uneasy but nodded. Though they were stronger, the sword had chosen Eric. There was no denying it. As the sun began to set over the crimson dunes, the chamber glowed softly, highlighting the human holding the ancient sword. For the first time, the crew realized that human traits, courage, intelligence, and intuition were as powerful as brute strength, and Zythera had just begun to reveal its secrets. Eric looked at the sword, feeling its quiet hum. Somewhere deep within the planet, he sensed a challenge waiting. Something that would test not just strength, but mind, character, and spirit. And for the first time in history, he felt ready to face it. The desert wind swept across the dunes outside, carrying the promise of adventure, danger, and discovery. The humans were small, yes, but on this alien world, they were proving that sometimes the smallest hands could hold the heaviest responsibilities and unlock the greatest secrets. And with that thought, Eric prepared to step deeper into the temple, the ancient sword floating effortlessly in his grip. Ready to reveal the first of many mysteries Zythera had kept hidden for millennia, the air inside the temple was thick with quiet energy. The glow from the ancient sword cast dancing lights across the walls, illuminating symbols that seemed to shift slightly as Eric moved. Every step he took, the sword's gentle hum seemed to follow him, guiding his path deeper into the structure. The alien crew, though still wary, followed closely. Jorak and Klar exchanged uneasy glances. Though they were far stronger than any human, the sword had chosen Eric. They could feel it. It pulsed with a quiet power that resisted their touch. "This place, it's like nothing I've ever seen," Klaus said, his voice low and reverent. "It's alive, almost." Eric nodded, his eyes scanning the walls. "Not alive, exactly, but it responds to qualities other than strength. Courage, intelligence, creativity, maybe even patience. That's why we, humans, can hold it when you cannot." The aliens looked skeptical, but they stayed quiet. Eric moved toward the first large chamber, where intricate carvings and glowing lines formed a complex pattern on the floor. At its center, a circular depression looked almost like a map. Symbols surrounding it matched the designs on the sword's hilt. He knelt down and studied them. "This isn't just a weapon," he said softly. "It's a key, or a guide. It's trying to show us something." As he traced a pattern with his finger, the floor beneath him shifted slightly. A low hum resonated through the chamber, and the circular map lit up, casting beams of soft blue light onto the walls. Holographic images appeared, showing the ancient Zytherans moving through planet cities, creating incredible machines, and solving problems that no modern species could match. Eric felt a thrill of awe. The civilization, they weren't just advanced. They were human-like in ways we don't expect. Look at how they work together, how they solve problems. It's incredible. Klaus stepped closer. "So the sword chooses those who understand. Teamwork, perhaps." "Not just that," Eric replied. "It seems to respond to judgment, creativity, and courage. These are qualities humans have in abundance, even if we're not the strongest or the fastest. That's what makes us different." The hologram shifted again, showing the Zytherans testing individuals who approached the sword. They faced challenges that required clever thinking, moral decisions, and quick problem-solving, not raw strength. And in each instance, only those with the right combination of traits succeeded. Eric realized that the temple itself was a trial. The sword was not meant to be used lightly. It was a test, a measure of whether a being was worthy to unlock Zythera's secrets. Suddenly, a sound echoed through the chamber. It wasn't loud, but it carried through the walls like a gentle warning. The sword vibrated slightly in Eric's hands. "The temple, it knows we're here," he said. "It's aware of our presence, and it's watching us." The aliens exchanged uneasy looks. They had expected to find treasure or technology, but not a sentient test. Still, their curiosity pushed them forward. "Do you think it will allow us to leave if we fail?" Jorak asked quietly. Eric shook his head. "I don't think it's about failure. It's about growth. It wants to see if we can adapt, think, and make the right choices. That's why it chose me. I'm not stronger than you, but I might see things differently." With careful steps, Eric guided the crew toward the next chamber. The walls were covered with complex patterns, each one glowing faintly as if reacting to the sword. As they entered, the floor beneath them began to shift, forming a labyrinth of glowing pathways. The air seemed heavier here, filled with a quiet anticipation. "This is some kind of maze," Klaus said, looking down at the shifting pathways. "We'll never make it through if it keeps changing." Eric studied the patterns. "It's not random. Look at the symbols. They respond to the sword. It's showing a path, but only to someone who understands a sequence. That's why it chose me." He stepped forward, holding the sword in front of him. The light from the blade reflected off the pathways, highlighting a specific route. The aliens followed cautiously, trying not to step on the wrong tiles. Each wrong move caused the path to shift slightly, forcing them to backtrack or think creatively. As they advanced, the sword pulsed gently, guiding Eric. The labyrinth wasn't just a physical challenge. It was a test of observation, problem-solving, and patience. The aliens were strong, yes, but they were used to brute force. Hey, their strength meant nothing. Hours passed as they navigated the maze. Eric's human intuition allowed him to notice subtle clues, a faint glow, a vibration under his feet, a small change in the air pressure. Each clue pointed toward the correct path. The aliens, unable to sense these subtleties, often hesitated or chose wrong turns. But Eric's careful guidance kept them moving forward. Finally, they reached a large chamber at the center of the labyrinth. The ceiling was high, with beams of light streaming through openings that seemed impossibly far above. At the center stood a pedestal, smaller than the one in the first chamber, but equally elegant. On it rested a small crystal, glowing with a soft blue light. Eric approached it slowly. "This must be the next part of the test," he said. "The sword brought us here for a reason." He picked up the crystal. The moment his fingers touched it, a series of holographic images appeared, showing humans in various acts of courage, kindness, and ingenuity. They were simple, everyday actions, but each one radiated a quiet strength. "The sword, it values these qualities," Eric said. "Not just physical ability, but heart, creativity, and courage." The aliens looked on in silence, clearly impressed. For all their technology and muscle, they had never encountered a test like this, one that measured true character and intelligence rather than raw power. As Eric studied the crystal, a low vibration began under their feet. The temple itself seemed to respond to the humans' insight. A hidden door opened in the far wall, revealing a spiral staircase leading downward. "The next trial," Eric said, his voice calm but excited. "It wants us to continue, and I think it's only going to get harder." The aliens nodded, a mix of awe and respect in their expressions. Class stepped closer. "You really are something. Human. This temple, it was waiting for someone like you." Eric smiled slightly, holding the sword close. "It's not just me. It's all humans. We have instincts, intuition, and problem-solving skills that no one else seems to understand fully. That's why the sword chose me, and why we can move forward." They descended the spiral staircase carefully, the walls glowing faintly with inscriptions. Each step seemed to pulse with energy, and Eric could feel the sword guiding him. The deeper they went, the more he understood that Zythera had designed these trials for beings who could think, adapt, and make choices in the moment. At the bottom of the staircase, they found a vast chamber filled with ancient devices. Some looked like machines, others like tools, but all were inactive, waiting for someone to operate them. The symbols on the walls matched patterns on the sword, suggesting connection between the human and the temple's mechanisms. Eric examined the devices carefully. "These aren't weapons. They are tools for building, learning, understanding. The sword doesn't want someone to fight with it. It wants someone who can think and create." He activated one of the devices by pressing it in a specific sequence. It hummed to life, projecting a holographic map of the entire temple and surrounding planet. This is incredible," he whispered. "It's like a library, a record of everything the civilization knew." The aliens gasped. All of this just waiting for a human to unlock it. Jorak asked. Eric nodded. "Yes, the sword chose the right person, not because of strength, but because of traits humans naturally have. Curiosity, creativity, courage, and the ability to see patterns others miss." The temple pulsed in response, and Eric could feel a quiet sense of approval. The sword's hum was gentle now, almost like a lullaby, acknowledging their progress. The first trials had been completed, and the human had proven himself capable. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Eric looked back at the devices and the glowing symbols. "This is just the beginning," he said. "Zythera has more secrets to reveal, and if we're careful, we can learn them and maybe even use them to help the galaxy." The aliens followed him, silent but respectful. For the first time, they truly understood that humans were more than they appeared. Strength and size mattered little here. It was the mind and heart that counted. Outside, the sun began to set, painting the red dunes in gold and crimson. Eric held the sword tightly, ready for the next challenge, knowing that the journey had only just begun. The temple had revealed its first secret, and humans had proven they were worthy. The deeper Eric and his crew went into the temple, the more the structure seemed alive. The walls were smooth and glowing, etched with symbols that shifted subtly, as if aware of their presence. Every pulse of light and every hum of energy seemed to respond to the sword Eric held. It was no longer just a weapon. It was a guide, a key to unlocking Zythera's greatest secrets. "This place," Klar muttered, his massive frame almost dwarfing the hallway. "It's like it knows us." Eric nodded, keeping his gaze fixed on the floor. Patterns glimmered faintly under his feet, and he could feel the sword vibrating gently, almost like a heartbeat. "It does, and it reacts differently to each of us. That's why it chose me. I don't know all its rules yet, but it responds to thought, intuition, and choice, qualities humans have in abundance." Jorak, still following closely, tilted his head. "So, it tests us? But why only a human can succeed?" Eric smiled faintly. "It's not about strength or size. It's about qualities we often take for granted. Observation, creativity, courage, and the ability to make quick decisions under pressure. Those are rare in most species, even if they are strong." Ahead, the corridor opened into a vast chamber. The ceiling stretched impossibly high, and columns of glowing blue light arched toward it. At the center of the room, a large circular platform rotated slowly. Around the edge of the platform were 5 pedestals, each holding a small crystal glowing softly. Eric approached the platform, feeling the sword's hum grow stronger. He knelt and studied the inscriptions around the pedestals. The symbols seemed to shift in response to the sword, aligning into a pattern that suggested a sequence. "This is a trial," Eric whispered. "The sword brought us here for a reason. Each pedestal represents a choice, a test. The crystals respond to thought, logic, and creativity, not strength." Klar frowned. "So, we just touched them in the right order." Eric shook his head. "No, it's more than that. We have to understand the pattern, predict the correct sequence based on reasoning, observation, and insight. And we must work together, or it will reset." The aliens exchanged glances. They were used to brute force and technology solving problems quickly. But hey, the temple resisted all shortcuts. Only Eric, with his human intuition, seemed able to interpret the symbols. He studied the first pedestal carefully. A soft vibration ran through the sword as he hovered his hand above the crystal. The symbols around the pedestal shifted subtly, as if acknowledging his understanding. Slowly, he pressed the crystal. A gentle hum echoed through the chamber. "Good," he said quietly. "It's recognizing my choice. Now, the next one." The platform rotated slightly, presenting the second pedestal. Eric examined it, noticing a faint pattern in the glowing lines on the floor. He traced them with his fingers, thinking through the sequence. The sword pulsed again, as if guiding him. Step by step, Eric pressed each pedestal, his mind focusing on observation, logic, and careful reasoning. The aliens watched, amazed, as he moved with confidence and precision. Every time he made a correct choice, the sword hum resonated more strongly, and the chamber glowed brighter. At one point, the platform shifted unexpectedly, presenting pedestals in a new arrangement. Klar and Jorak froze. Their instinct would have been to force or push, but Eric adapted instantly. He studied the new positions, noticing subtle hints in the symbols and the sword vibration. With careful movements, he continued the sequence, adjusting to the changes without hesitation. "This is incredible," Jorak whispered. "No one else could do this. Not even me." Eric glanced back at them, smiling. "That's the point. The temple isn't just testing strength or intelligence. It's testing adaptability, creativity, and teamwork. And humans, we develop these skills out of necessity every day." As a final pedestal lit up under his hand, a soft vibration shook the chamber. The platform split into multiple layers, revealing a staircase spiraling downward into darkness. A gentle glow came from below, illuminating intricate carvings along the walls. "This is the next stage," Eric said, "and I have a feeling it's going to test more than just logic. It will test our courage, our decision-making under uncertainty." The aliens followed cautiously, still in awe. They had seen humans accomplish remarkable things before, but never on a scale like this. The sword had chosen wisely. The staircase opened into a vast underground cavern, its ceiling lost in shadows. Strange crystalline structures grew from the floor, casting shifting lights that created a dizzying pattern. The sword pulsed strongly, almost as if it were alive, guiding Eric's path through the maze of crystals. Suddenly, a portion of the floor shifted, revealing a small puzzle-like mechanism embedded in the stone. Panels slid into place, forming a pattern that required careful manipulation to solve. Eric knelt down, studying the mechanism. "This is a logic puzzle," he said. "It's not dangerous, but it's designed to challenge the mind. And it's responsive. It changes if we make mistakes." The aliens tried to approach, but the floor beneath them shifted each time they touched the panel incorrectly. Strength was useless here. Only careful observation and patience could succeed. Eric adjusted a few panels, testing sequences, noticing subtle shifts in the lights and the sword's vibrations. After several careful moves, the mechanism clicked into place. A section of the cavern wall slid open, revealing another chamber beyond. The sword's glow brightened, and Eric felt a deep sense of approval emanating from it. "This is what it wants," he said softly. "It wants to see humans solve problems not by force, but by thought, observation, and cleverness. That's why it chose me, and why we are progressing." The aliens followed, now clearly respecting Eric's lead. They understood that this trial was not about muscle or dominance. It was about qualities humans often relied on instinctively: creativity, reasoning, and courage in the face of uncertainty. The next chamber was circular, with a shallow pool of liquid at its center. Above the pool, holographic symbols floated in the air, forming a complex pattern that seemed impossible to decipher. Eric approached carefully, holding the sword over the surface of the water. Its glow reflected in the liquid, highlighting the symbols in a new way. He studied the reflections, noticing patterns invisible from any other angle. Slowly, he traced a sequence in the air, following subtle cues in the holograms and the sword vibration. The symbols shifted in response, forming a clear path across the water. "Follow carefully," Eric instructed. "Each step must be precise. Misstep, and the pattern resets." The aliens followed his instructions, stepping cautiously across the illuminated path. Each panel of water lit up as they moved correctly, fading if they stepped out of sequence. Step by step, they crossed the pool, reaching the far side safely. Eric set the sword down gently at the edge of the pool, and the chamber vibrated softly. A hidden door opened, revealing a staircase that led further downward. The temple seemed almost alive, guiding them forward but only through the humans' insight. At the bottom of the staircase, they entered a vast hall filled with intricate machinery. Some machines seemed dormant, while others hummed faintly, waiting for interaction. The sword pulsed strongly, as if drawing attention to a control panel etched with symbols that matched its hilt. "This," Eric whispered, "is a library of knowledge. All this civilization's wisdom is here, waiting for someone to access it thoughtfully, not by force, but by understanding." He activated a panel, and holographic images of Zythera's greatest inventions filled the hall: energy devices, communication systems, and tools that could reshape the planet's environment. Each required clever manipulation and insight to operate. The aliens watched silently, clearly impressed. No species had ever unlocked these secrets before. Humans, through intuition and reasoning, were capable of achieving what strength alone could not. Eric smiled, lifting the sword. "The trials aren't over, but we've proven something important. Humans are uniquely capable. The sword chooses not the strongest, but the one who can think, adapt, and act with courage. That's why we succeed." Outside, faint light from Zythera's twin suns filtered through cracks in the cavern ceiling, casting a golden glow on the ancient machinery. Eric knew the next stages would be even more challenging, testing not only the mind but the heart. And yet, he felt confident. Humans were small, yes, and not the most powerful in the galaxy, but they had something no other species possessed in equal measure: ingenuity, creativity, courage, and the ability to adapt when the world shifted around them. With a sword guiding him, Eric led the crew forward into the heart of Zythera's secrets, ready to face whatever new trials awaited. The temple pulsed around them, alive with energy, as if acknowledging the arrival of a species capable of understanding it. For the first time, the aliens truly realized that humanity had a strength that could overcome any challenge, even on an alien world designed to defeat them. And deep within the temple, the ancient sword glowed brighter than ever, preparing for the final trials that would reveal the full power and wisdom of humanity. The temple had grown quieter as Eric led his crew through the final chambers. Each step they took resonated with a soft hum from the ancient sword. It was as if the weapon itself were alive, guiding them with a gentle but firm hand. The air was thick with anticipation, almost like the planet itself was holding its breath. "This is it," Eric whispered, his eyes scanning the walls of the final chamber. "This is where the temple reveals its ultimate secret." The aliens followed silently. Their respect for the human commander had grown with each trial. They had seen strength, intelligence, and courage fail where human ingenuity and heart had succeeded. They had seen a human navigate the labyrinth, solve puzzles, and unlock the hidden wisdom of Zythera. Now, they were ready to witness the culmination. The chamber was vast, shaped like a dome with a ceiling that stretched impossibly high. At its center stood a pedestal, glowing softly in the sword's light. On the pedestal rested a sphere made of a crystal so clear it looked like liquid glass. Inside, tiny shapes moved and shimmered, forming patterns that seemed alive. Eric approached slowly, holding the sword in both hands. The sword pulsed as he stepped closer, resonating with the sphere. It was clear that the sphere and the sword were connected, two halves of the temple's final test. "This is the heart of Zythera," Eric said softly. "Everything we've seen, the puzzles, the labyrinth, the devices, it all led to this. And now, it's showing itself to someone worthy." The aliens watched in awe as Eric knelt in front of the sphere. Symbols floated around the chamber, glowing faintly as if responding to his presence. Eric could feel the energy of the temple flowing through the sword, guiding his mind. He studied the patterns inside the sphere carefully. They shifted in ways that were complex but logical, like a puzzle designed to test understanding and creativity. Unlike previous trials, this one required not only observation but intuition, empathy, and foresight. "The temple isn't just testing knowledge," Eric murmured. "It's testing judgment, the ability to understand, to act wisely, and to care about the consequences of your choices." He reached out, touching the crystal sphere with the sword's tip. Immediately, the chamber filled with holographic visions, cities, machines, and inventions of Zythera's ancient civilization. But they were incomplete, half-formed, waiting for someone to make sense of them. Eric's mind raced as he studied the patterns. Each hologram responded to his thoughts, shifting and aligning as he considered the best way to arrange the designs. Slowly, deliberately, he began to guide the images into coherence. Machines connected correctly, energy flows balanced, and patterns that had seemed impossible now fit together perfectly. The aliens gasped. How is he doing this?" Clara asked quietly. "We could never see the patterns like that." Eric glanced at them. "It's not about seeing better. It's about thinking differently, observing, experimenting, and trusting your instincts. That's what humans do. We notice things others miss. We find solutions where others see only walls." Hours passed as Eric worked with the sphere, the sword glowing steadily in his hands. Each adjustment brought more clarity to the ancient civilization's designs. The temple seemed to respond, its walls pulsing with light, as if cheering the human on. Finally, a soft hum filled the chamber. The sphere glowed brighter, and the holograms aligned perfectly. The ancient machines, cities, and inventions shimmered in full form, displaying knowledge lost for millennia. The sword's light reached its peak, casting a brilliant glow over the chamber. Eric stepped back, letting the sword rest lightly in his hands. "It's complete," he said, voice full of awe. "We've unlocked it, not by force, but by understanding, observation, and care. This civilization trusted someone like us to continue their legacy." The alien stepped forward slowly, clearly impressed. Jorak's usual confidence was tempered with respect. "I don't think we'll ever forget this, human. You've shown us something we could not have imagined. Strength alone is meaningless here. Understanding, and the courage to act wisely, that's what counts." Eric smiled faintly. That's why the sword chose a human. Not because of what we can lift or destroy, but because of how we think, feel, and adapt. That's our strength. As the chamber pulsed with light, the sword hummed gently, almost like a contented sigh. It floated slightly above Eric's hands, acknowledging his achievement. He had passed a final test. This knowledge, it could help the galaxy, Eric said. Not to conquer, not to destroy, but to understand, build, and improve. That's what the Zytherans wanted. They left this as someone capable, someone who could carry their wisdom responsibly. The aliens nodded silently. They had always measured worth by power or speed. Now they understood that true strength lay in insight, adaptability, and compassion, qualities humans had shown again and again. Eric placed the sword carefully back on its pedestal, though it hovered gently for a moment longer, almost reluctant to leave his hands. The temple seemed satisfied, its glowing symbols pulsing in rhythm with the sword. It had found a worthy champion, and the secrets of Zythera were now safe in the hands of someone who would respect them. As they prepared to leave, Eric glanced around the chamber. "We've only scratched the surface," he said. "There are more rooms, more devices, more lessons. But the temple has already taught us something important. Humans are capable of great things, not through strength, but through insight, courage, and persistence." Outside, the crimson sun of Zythera was setting, casting long shadows over the dunes. The alien crew walked beside Eric, their respect evident. They had come seeking treasure or power, but had found something far greater, an understanding of what it meant to be truly capable, beyond physical might. Eric paused at the temple entrance, looking back once more at the glowing structure. "This place will remain," he said, "waiting for those who are worthy, waiting for humans to continue what we've begun." Kla stepped beside him, voice soft but filled with admiration. "You've changed the way we see humans, Eric. We always underestimated you. We never thought someone like you could do what you've done here." Eric smiled. "We're not the strongest species, yes, but we adapt, we think, we care, and sometimes that's enough to lift the heaviest burdens or the heaviest swords." As the crew returned to their shuttle, Eric held the sword lightly, allowing its hum to guide him. The secrets of Zythera were no longer hidden. The knowledge, the wisdom, and the lessons of an ancient civilization were now in capable hands. The aliens, once doubtful, now looked at humanity with new eyes. They had witnessed firsthand that strength is not always physical. Intelligence, creativity, courage, and moral judgment were often the most powerful tools of all. Back aboard the shuttle, Eric gazed as Zythera's red dunes one last time. He could feel the hum of the sword through the ship, as if the planet itself was sending a quiet acknowledgement. Humanity had been tested and had succeeded. The galaxy would soon hear of this achievement, not because humans had conquered or destroyed, but because they had understood, adapted, and acted wisely when no other species could. The sword had chosen a human, and through this human, Zythera's ancient legacy had been preserved. It was a triumph not of might, but of mind and heart. Eric smiled faintly. This was only the beginning. Humans had proven that their greatest strength was themselves. And somewhere deep within Zythera's hidden chambers, the ancient sword waited silently for the next worthy human, ready to guide them on a journey of discovery, courage, and wisdom. The galaxy had witnessed the rise of a new kind of hero, not the strongest, not the largest, but the human, capable of what no other species could achieve. For the first time, many species began to see humans not as fragile, weak, or simple, but as a force defined by ingenuity, courage, and heart. And Eric, holding the ancient sword lightly as the shuttle lifted off, knew that humanity had not only survived the temple's trials, they had left a mark that will be remembered for millennia. The stars awaited. The galaxy had changed, and the human race, small but unyielding, had proven that sometimes the smallest hands could hold the heaviest responsibilities and unlock the greatest secrets of all.